Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of the Bees Analytica Podcast. I'm delighted to say we're joined by former Bee, Charlie Macdonald. We're going to have a bit of a chat through about his career, where it's going and what he's doing now. Welcome, Charlie.
Hello there.
Brilliant to have you on, mate. I know we just spoke about it a bit off air, but what are you doing nowadays to keep yourself busy?
Currently, I'm still playing, fortunately, at the ripe old age of 39. Still playing semi-professional football for uh, Glebe, which is in step five of the pyramid. But like we just spoke about, the lockdowns obviously everything's come to a halt at that level from step two down, and it's been quite tough in terms of obviously having to have this month off. But my actual day job is full-time coaching, so I coach at an academy, which is a football college program, which is under Crystal Palace's umbrella. It's called Valenti. We're linked with London Nautical School in Blackfriars, so that's still up and running because that class is as educational and it's part of the curriculum, so we can still coach all those boys. But I also coach in a private academy in the afternoons, which is completely shut down. So yeah, not great, but we're doing what we can, and like I said before, we have to abide by the government's guidelines, and hopefully 2nd of December it'll get lifted, but I'm not holding my breath if I'm honest.
No, it seems with everything right now, it's just the entire world stopped again. But did you always see yourself going in as a coach post-playing career, or was it kind
If
of you
I'm
just fell
totally
into it?
honest, yeah, no, if I'm totally honest, I didn't. I looked at obviously when I was a player and I was going into sessions. Some sessions I found monotonous and quite boring, and cones everywhere. I was thinking it was close to an airport. Before it was an emergency landing for an airport. But no, I didn't. If I'm completely honest with you, I didn't find it like it really sort of got me. So when I was at Oldham, when I joined Oldham, I did a degree, a distance learning degree in media, so in professional broadcasting, writing and broadcasting, um, up at Staffordshire University. So I did a 2-year degree while I was still playing full-time football, and I've managed to get a little bit of work off of that, BBC Radio, some BT Sport stuff. But where I'm still playing, I've had to turn a lot of work down as well, especially for radio, match summarising and stuff like that. So I did want to stay in the game. I did want to stay involved, but coaching wasn't where I had planned to go. But then obviously I did my badges as well, just to have some more strings to my bow, and I've really enjoyed it. I've been coaching now for 5 years. So
Well,
yeah, it's been great. It's been great, especially when you see some of these younger kids come to fruition and go up and get spotted by academies and go into the professional game. It's very, very rewarding.
no, and well, we had a look into your career. Obviously, you were at Charlton to start with as a young lad, and then happened to fall down into conference level. Was that down to the system that was in place at Charlton, or was it a case of just you went wherever you could at the time?
Um, yeah, I've had this conversation plenty of times with people, and I don't really like to say, it was this, it was that. At the time, I broke through as a young lad, managed to sign professional terms at the age of 17, which I was delighted about, but probably probably got a little bit too big too quick maybe, and probably thought I'd cracked it at that age. I played in the Premier League a few times, and it was tough because I actually had an offer of an extension at Charlton, which my agent at the time went in to sort of haggle with, and it didn't come out in the way I wanted it to. So in the end, the contract was pulled. But at the time when I got released from Charlton at the age of 21, that was when ITV Digital collapsed.
Okay.
So in the lower leagues, there was clubs not being able to take players. There was players having to take wage cuts. There was assistant managers and staff who were having to be made redundant and get let go. So that's why I fell so big so quick, because obviously I ended up from Premier League into the conference, which it was a massive shock, and it took me a year to sort of get my head around that and sort of knuckle down and try and get going again, if I'm honest.
Yeah, do you see that taking it into your coaching then, especially with some of these lads that are coming through at college level? Do you find that experience has helped you in your
Yeah,
coaching?
personally, yeah, definitely. I think some of these lads, with the way football's evolved over the years as well, I think where they're not in an academy system at the moment, and they're 16, 17. You can never say never. You look at, you take people's experiences like Jamie Vardy, for instance, who didn't get into football till he was late developing, and Ian Wright didn't get into it, he was 26 years old as well. And you always got to tell these kids they've still got a chance. We'll give them the opportunity, we'll give them the tools to try and develop and progress, and we'll give them the opportunity if we feel that they're ready for one by picking up the phone. And we've got a lot of contacts in the game, myself and Bobby Bowery, who's an ex-Crystal Palace Premier League midfielder who also heads up the programme. So we have been fortunate enough to have boys go into clubs and get professional contracts at different clubs in lower league. But we also tell these boys now, even with myself still playing at part-time level, even at semi-professional level now, there's still money to be earned in the game, and there's still it's still a good career where you've got a platform to play off and still have a chance of going up. So if it don't work out for you at an academy club or a pro club, then you can't look beyond the semi-professional level just to have a platform for you to go and play and express yourself, and hopefully then you'll get noticed.
Yeah, definitely.
Charlie, you had 3 loan spells from Charlton. Do you think they were a big key in your development as a player?
Yeah, I do, to be honest with you. But then at Charlton, when I was a player, there was no under 23. So when we played in the reserves at Charlton, we were playing with men. So we were playing with the lads who were not playing on a Saturday for their first teams, and against players like I was fortunate enough to play against Gianfranco Zola and Ian Walker in goal for Tottenham, with John Scales at centre half, and we had big players that we used to play against, and that's because they needed minutes or they was coming back from injury. And so it wasn't the under 23, and yeah, I do get that it's a little bit false, the under 23 football at pro clubs, because even now when they're offering those players to even non-league clubs now, they're umming and ahhing in non-league clubs and I'm not sure they're ready to go into men's football. So I do think it made a difference for me, even though I was playing regularly in the reserves. But yeah, going to get that more competitive football where you drop down, and it matters so much more to these lower league players because they're not on as much money and they're not classed as elite, and they've got mortgages to pay and bills to pay, and they have to make sure that they're on it because you never know where the next contract's going to be coming from. So yeah, it was tough. It was a good grounding. It was an eye opener, and like I said before, probably at that age where I'd played in the first team at a young age and I'd played in the Premier League. Before I went to the Colchester loan, I played in the Premier League, and I probably thought I was a little bit better than the level I was going down to. So I didn't really apply myself properly, if I'm honest. And I regret that now, because when I did drop out of it and drop into non-league, when I managed to get back in the league again, I was never going to let that the second chance pass me by.
It's kind of that. Obviously, you go from being at the top of your game to then not necessarily, but you worked your way back up slowly, especially when it came to your time at Brentford. You came and joined the club where it was at probably its lowest point it has been in my lifetime anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to ask you a question about, what do you think then about the academy football in general? Do you think, obviously you mentioned it there with the 23s not being particularly useful right now, what do you think could bridge that gap between under 21s, under 18s boys football up to the men's game eventually?
I'd love them to scrap the under 23s and go back to reserve football again. It would be brilliant. Obviously, I understand why they've done the under 23s, because they feel that between the age of 21 and 23, the development of that 2 years is key, and it gives players the chance to stay on at clubs rather than get released too early, which is massive. I don't doubt that at all. But I don't know, maybe is there room to add a reserves in after a 23s? So the boys that are actually looking like they're physically ready and developed, can they then go and play in with, reserve fixtures, even if it's a small league, against other men, against good players who actually need minutes from their first teams because they've just come back from injury or they've had a suspension or etc. Just something along them lines, rather than going from 23s and then straight into a first team somewhere and you may not quite be ready.
Yeah, they've tried to obviously bridge that gap with the EFL Trophy for like when they've got the 23 teams playing in.
Yeah, no, yeah, I see that. Yeah, I mean, but a lot of these bigger clubs don't really take the EFL Trophy that seriously. That's why they play their young kids. But I understand. Yeah, obviously you've got teams like Leyton Orient who play their first team and other ones like that. But if you look at some of the results, I mean, some of
Yeah.
these under-23s get a pasting.
There's been some. Who was it this year? I think it was. I know United's under 23s absolutely battered Salford, and then
Yeah,
you look at that of what use is that to the 23s, battering Salford's under 23s.
yeah,
I think it was then Leicester or Norwich, one of the two, got really badly beaten. So then it's
yeah. That's right. Yeah, I know. Leyton Orient's first team beat beat Leicester or Norwich. I think it was their 23s. They give them a pasting about 6 or something like that. I think it was.
so yeah, you look at it. What's
So
the
yeah,
use of the development either side? Like no one's really learned anything. You've got some senior pros at Orient that it's just there because they have to play the game because
hmm
they're enforced to play 5 people from the week
yep,
before.
yeah.
And then you've got the under 23s who have just got absolutely battered by a bunch of grown men. So
Exactly, yeah. So you just think where does that leave them? Where does that leave them mentally? Because if they're cruising in their under-23 age group against other under-23s in their leagues, and then they go into something like that, and then they get battered, where what do you do? Where do you sort of see that? Where's the middle ground there?
exactly. Now, personally, for me, academy football, I don't really agree with it as a general. I much prefer the B team method that Brentford have employed.
Yeah, no,
So,
they have, and they've come. I played with Sammy Saunders, and he's part of that.
mhm.
And I still talk to Sam, and I'm pleased he's doing as well as what he's doing at the club. He's a bit of a legend at Brentford, so um, it was great that they got him back involved. And Matthew Benham, the chairman, really liked him. He's got in, and they've sort of fast tracked him a little bit in terms of giving him his opportunity. So great for him because it's great for the B players to sort of learn from his experiences as a player and what it takes. And yeah, it's brilliant the way Brentford have done that with their B team.
Do you see that as the way forward potentially, or do you think there was always going to be a need for academy football, especially at the younger ages?
I think at the younger ages, you have to have the need for academy football. I think they need to get their ground in. They have to be, tactically, technically, socially developed, physically, before they can actually go into that B. So I do think as an academy, you have to have. I think it's vitally important that you have that. But then you've also you've got the categories. You've got Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, and if I'm totally honest, the football college program, and I'll say it, the football college program that I run, our top players, our top team that we run in that would beat a lot of Cat 3 academies.
Yeah.
Like we've played against Cat 3 academies. So the opportunity for some boys not getting the opportunities to go into academies yet. I feel I coach better players than what if like teams like Colchester and Leyton Orient and AFC Wimbledon have got in the door at the moment.
Yeah, so
But it's just these boys need a chance. That's all.
there's that gap, isn't there? Obviously, because if you're Orient, you're competing against your Chelseas, your Arsenals, your Tottenham.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest flaw with the academy system and with EPPP. Is obviously it's caused
Yeah.
that divide to come in, where players can obviously just get, if they're any good at 7 years old, they can be taken and put into this Chelsea system and then be dumped by the time they're 18.
Yeah. No, it's a weird one. I mean, we've got a lad at the moment. We coached a lad a couple of years ago who we sent. He went to play men's football at Worthing in the Ryman Prem. He played about 6 or 7 games there, and he was getting a lot of attention. And this is bearing in mind this is before we'd already sent him into clubs. So we'd sent him into. He'd been on trial at AFC Wimbledon, got a no. He actually went to Brentford and he went to Italy with Brentford's B team in the pre-season, and they really, really liked him. But the reason they said they didn't take him was it was because he wasn't tactically ready. Now, for me, I think you as coaches need to make him tactically ready. He has to be wanting to be tactically ready the Brentford way, not any other way. So if he's not used to being the way Brentford need him to be, it's you as coach's job now to try and make him tactically ready. So I didn't really see that as a valid reason why they didn't take him. But he didn't go, and he didn't lose any faith. In the end, he ended up going on loan to Colchester, and they ended up giving him a year's pro and a year's option. He played 30 odd games last year, scored 6 goals in the first team, signed a new deal, and he's being spoken about now of going to another club and being paid. They're paying in the region of £2 million for him, and one of them clubs is Brentford.
So circled, don't it?
Yeah. So So I mean, you have success stories like that. It's brilliant. But it's about, for me, for these young boys, the best players are the ones with the mental resilience. They have to be resilient because they're going to get plenty of knockbacks, and it's how they deal with them knockbacks that all define their character.
Yeah. Would you say that's one of the biggest things then, and for people that go into the professional game? Because everyone dreams of being a striker and going on and scoring tons of goals. Do you think the mental side is often overlooked in football?
Yeah, definitely. I think the mental side is vitally important. I'd say that is one of the, if someone says to me, what's the 3 things that you need the most, resilience would be one of them. Mentally being resilient, because everyone wants praise, but then you have to be ready for your criticism, as long as it's constructive and you can learn from it. And people get a battering, and like I say, the lower down you go, especially these under 23 boys. I mean, if they go into a first team dressing room lower down and all of a sudden don't have a great game, and they start getting the so-called hairdryer treatment, will that affect them? We don't know. Have they come across that before? We don't really know. So it's a totally different world playing in the full-time men's football than it is in an academy level. So I do think these boys have to be prepared and resilient. But fortunately for me, my sort of attitude, my mental attitude was where I was at the start of my career to where I dropped to. At first, I felt sorry for myself. So for the first year of dropping into the conference, I felt sorry for myself. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm better than this. But actions speak louder than words. It took me a year to get myself sorted out, and then I then had a mindset of, I'm going to prove people wrong. I want to show people that they was wrong, and that's been my sort of mindset, was making sure that if I get critics and people that doubted me, then that was my motivation then to go and prove people wrong, and that's how I was. So mentally, I feel I am quite a strong character mentally, and I feel that it is vitally important for boys' characteristics these days.
Yeah, brilliant. Great insight there. Love that. As someone that's a young coach or just starting my coaching and analysis career, it's been great insight listening to your thoughts on youth football, especially. I think we'll move on a bit into now your more playing career, and especially your time at Brentford, which arguably was your most successful spell in your career. I know James wanted to find out, what do you think made it so successful? Was it a system? Was it the management?
I think it was a little bit of everything. At the time, obviously, my spell at Brentford, I don't know whether, obviously, you know this, but I could have gone there a year earlier. When I obviously played in non-league, I was at Gravesend and Northfleet, which are now Ebbsfleet. I scored a lot of goals for them, and I saw my contract out, and there was about 3 clubs who I'd been speaking to go back into the league. So I was fortunate enough to have a few options. One of them was Scunthorpe, who had just been promoted to the Championship. The other was Southend, who had just been relegated from the Championship. And then obviously the other one was Brentford in League 2. But at the time, Terry Butcher was manager.
Okay.
So I actually did go to Osterley, to the training ground, and with my agent, and we had a sit down and had a meeting with Terry, and Andy Scott was his number 2 at the time. And the first thing Terry said to me when I walked through the door was, I'm not going to lie, I don't know who you are, but I'm going off Andy's recommendation. So straight away as a player, I'm thinking, well, this is the manager. If he's telling me he doesn't know who I am,
that was a great start.
And he's never seen me play, and straight away I'd sort of switched off a little bit, and I thought, this ain't the club for me. But then obviously Andy carried on his pursuit of me, and once Andy then got the job, he was interested still, and Terry Bullivant was a key figure as well as the coach. And I just think that Brentford's pursuit of me, even though I'd signed for Southend, keeping tabs on me, coming to watch me play for Southend reserves when I wasn't playing in the first team, and then the willingness to then buy me in the summer with a couple of bids, bought me in the summer. It was just the fact of how much they wanted me and how much I felt like I was wanted. And as a player, you want to feel wanted. Straight away when I come in, I'd already had half a pre-season with Southend, so I was at a good level of fitness. And then I missed the first couple of games of the season with a bit of a groin injury. But I suppose the Grimsby game, the first game, with the way it went, and obviously with the fans seeing what I could do on day one was huge. And I think that helped me settle in, and that helped me have a rapport with the fans. And yeah, from then on, it was, I felt loved at the club as the more I went on, and I felt appreciated, loved. And as a player, you want to feel loved and appreciated. And my family was welcome all the time. It was just a great little club, if I'm honest. And yeah, I felt really, really at home there. And I suppose that's why you saw the stats and the goals and the performances that I managed to give in my time at Brentford. Because as a player, if you're feeling good and everything around you's right, then there's no excuses, and you can go into games, with nothing on your mind apart from the job in hand.
Yeah, definitely. That League Two season, obviously, you got injured. Was it around the March time?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Did your shoulder, and by that point, you'd already scored 18 in your first season, which is incredible numbers for at that time.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go on. That's fine. No, I was disappointed that I couldn't see in the end of the season, which obviously was a lot of hard work from the whole squad, and I wanted to hit over that 20 mark, but it wasn't to be. But fortunately for us, it's not about me as an individual; it's about us as a club, and we done the job we set out to do, and we managed to lift the trophy.
Yeah, definitely. Did you take that mindset then into the following season? Because you then again won Brentford's Golden Boot and get 17 the season after, was it?
Yeah, no, I did, and that was more pleased. I mean, as much as you want as a footballer, you want to win trophies and be successful. And luckily for me, I've got a few promotions over my CV, and that's great. But what was great for me was obviously coming back from that serious injury, because the shoulder, it weren't just any dislocation; it popped out the back, and I had a bit of a heel sacks, which is a chip in the joint, which means I had to have open surgery rather than keyhole surgery. So it kept me out they said it was going to keep me out for 6 months. I managed to get back in 5 months, and I suppose I had a point to prove again at League One level, because at Southend I didn't really get as many games as what I thought, and I wanted to make sure I proved people wrong again. So yeah, when I got back in, I felt fresh. Luckily for me, a majority of my rehab was in the summer, so I didn't miss too much of that following season. And it was brilliant. The rehab I done, the everything, all the physios I worked with, and I was always constantly spoken to by management and staff. And sometimes as an injured player, a long-term injury, it can be a lonely place, because some managers won't speak to you. If you're not available to them, they won't speak to you, and that's a mental thing. It's quite a lonely place being injured, but I managed to get through it, like I said, and fortunately for me, if it was 5 months of the season, then it would have been a lot tougher. But because it was the off season, it was great. And then obviously coming back, and I think I made my debut in that League One season against Charlton. I come on at Charlton as a sub. I think that was my first appearance back after the shoulder injury. So great, obviously going back to the Valley and coming on there. So yeah, it was great. It was great times, and yeah, as a striker, it's your job to score goals, and luckily for me, I managed to do that at the club quite frequently.
Brilliant. Would you say put Andy Scott then as one of your best coaches, managers you've worked under, or is there in your later career have you gone on and found someone else that's you felt the same way you did at Brentford?
No, yeah, of course, but Andy Scott was a massive factor in terms of how things were with me. He made it quite clear that when he signed me, he signed me to play. And when I was fit, I played. And when I was injured, I was not hurried back, but you could see that they needed me back and they wanted me to get me back as quick as possible. So being a main focal in a team is what you want. And they made me that. Andy made me that. Terry Bullivant made me that, and I thrived off that. So Andy and Terry, they would definitely be up there, because as a player, you want, like I say, you want to be successful, you want to win trophies. So straight away we won League Two. We had a good finish in our first year in League One, and I mean, for me, I enjoyed my time under those two. Definitely, there's other coaches that I've obviously in my earlier days where I'd say taught me the basics, and were really good coaches in my grounding of football. But yeah, I'd have to say, in terms of like you mentioned before, the best years of my career were at Brentford, no doubt, and Andy and Terry were a massive part of that.
Yeah, definitely. When you joined Bees, it coincided with the fan ownership over into Benham. Did you sense that then Brentford was a club on the up that was moving forward, or was it just a case of you were playing, it was going really well at the time, and the external stuff didn't really catch on the radar?
Yeah, I think as players, we don't try to, the external stuff. We try to sort of leave to them people up there in the boardroom and stuff. As players, we want to get on with our training. We want to get on with all of our fitness work, and then go into matches. So we didn't let that bother us too much. I think when I first got there, the expectation wasn't to win the league. It was, can we push to get into the playoffs? But the way we started and the squad we had, how hungry we were as a team, the characters we had in the dressing room, and the team spirit we built up, it was massive. And that, in big games, everyone stood up to be counted. And listen, it was a fantastic season, and one that will live in my memory. It's great to be able to tell your kids, or not tell your kids, because my boys were there, but obviously to have them sort of memories and go back over them sort of games and situations and moments. Fantastic to be able to lift trophies. And like I say, one of the memories that lives up there with one of the highlights of my career.
Right. What would you then say personally is your favourite game that you've played in, on an individual level and then on a team level?
For Brentford?
Or no, just across your career.
Across my career, my favourite moment would probably be scoring in the Premier League. As a kid, you dream of playing at the highest level, and for me, there was no greater level than playing in the Premier League. And to come on as a substitute at 1-0 down against Newcastle and manage to score the equaliser was one of my best ever memories. I mean, as a youngster, it's what you dream of, and to be able to say I've graced the Premier League and I've scored in the Premier League is something I'll be proud of, and no one can ever take that away from me. But on a consistency level, playing at Brentford, what would I say would have been the best game I played in? Do you know what? I'd say it probably was the Everton game. In the cup. The Everton game in the cup under the lights on a Tuesday night. I mean, they had some really good players at the time: Phil Neville, Fellaini, Arteta, Stephen Pienaar, Jagielka at the back, and it was they was a good side, and we gave them a real good game. And for me, I had mixed emotions, because obviously I missed a penalty in normal time, and I was confident to step up in the shootout and managed to put it away in the shootout. So yeah, it was a fantastic game, and that cup run we went on that year was brilliant as well. So that stands out for me, the Everton game, and managed to beat Everton was a great one. Yeah.
I'm quite a young fan, and I started supporting the Bees. I think it was that season, the League Two season, and then obviously since then it's just been an upwards trajectory since. And I will make a small confession. Growing up, you were my absolute idol. And I remember, I was going to bring it up later with one of the fan things you might have had to do, but yeah, you were an absolute idol to me growing up. And
No, I appreciate that.
I remember was it the Birmingham game, and then the cup game afterwards you scored away at Birmingham, I think it was, in that same cup season.
Yeah, no, I didn't score. I set up Woodsy. Sam Wood scored the goal.
It was Wood.
Yeah, and it went to penalties again, didn't it? Yeah, but I was off. I think I came off in extra time, I was absolutely shattered, and obviously in the penalty shootout, we unfortunately got beat. But Kevin Phillips scored a late equaliser that day, didn't he? So, like he's done so many times in his career. But yeah, again, but then you look at that, and I think Birmingham went on to win it that year, didn't they?
They did, yes. I was good.
Yeah,
Listen to us
yeah,
to
they
the
did.
eventual winners.
No, exactly. Yeah, so that's yeah. You say one thing about it is you're getting beat by the winners. So yeah, a bitter pill to swallow. But we had some good games. I mean, we beat Hull as well in that cup. So it was that we had some good games in that competition that year.
You also then obviously went on the cup run in the JPT that final, but towards the back end of that season, obviously Scott was then sacked in the February time and Forster took over. Did you see that kind of as once Scott left, it was your time to move on from the club, or did you
No,
feel
because
it just
no, I didn't. Yeah, I thought I roomed a few times with Nicky, and me and Fozzie we had a good relationship, even though we was two forward players. And he made it quite clear to me once Andy had left, because obviously he knew that sort of relationship I had with Andy, and he made it quite clear. He called me in his office. He said to me, "Listen, don't you're a massive part of the plans, and you're our number one, centre forward, and um, we want you to stay, and I want you to be on board with what we're trying to do." So I was like, "Yeah, listen, no problem. Listen, what's happened with Andy Scott has happened, and I'm a Brentford player, and I'll remain a Brentford player as long as the club want me, or I feel like it's not time to move on, So that season ended disappointingly for me, because I missed that JPT final, which I was devastated about, because in the semi-final against Exeter I fractured my ankle. So yeah, I fractured the ankle, come back a little bit too quickly against Brighton at home, I think it was, in the league, and it went again. So yeah, I mean, the club were great. I mean, Mark Warburton at the time and Fozzie, they said, listen, they could see I was devastated. I wasn't going to make it, and they said, listen, you've had your scan, you've got your boot to put on, book yourself a holiday and get yourself away with the family for a week. So yeah, I was probably the most tanned fella in Wembley Stadium that day.
glowing?
Yeah, so I was, yeah, I mean, went away for a week and just chilled out and just done some work in the gym, and then come back, and I was a little bit refreshed and went to support the boys, but unfortunately wasn't a great spectacle, and not a great result in the end.
No, yeah. Degarga getting sent off, I think it was around 50, 60 minutes.
Yeah,
by that point.
yeah, but I mean, we'd beat Carlisle 3-1 in the league not so long before that, and I managed to get a couple that day, I think, or I got one, and Miles Weston got a couple, I remember rightly. But yeah, they were just a bit of a dogged side, and they had a bit of experience, but they were quite well organised. But other than that, you didn't really feel that they was going to beat us. But yeah, I mean, they did, and yeah, it wasn't meant to be that day.
It's just one of them things, especially. Obviously, in that summer, then you moved on to MK Dons. How did you
Yeah,
find your
the
time?
reason.
I've gone.
Go on.
Explain the
Yeah, the
story.
reason behind that. Yeah, so the story behind the MK Dons move was obviously Nicky Forster got the sack, didn't he? And Uwe came in, and I thought, this is going to be great. He was a top player. He played for Man City in the Premier League. He's a centre forward, so I'm going to be able to learn from him. He's European, so we're gonna have totally different sort of training structure and bits and pieces. So when he first come in, everything seemed fine, but then pre-season, so I'd come back from. That's when I'd come back from my. I think it was my ankle injury. Yeah, I'd come back from my ankle injury. I was fit. I was ready. And then he obviously brought a few players in, Clayton Donaldson being one of them. And then pre-season, I didn't find myself playing many minutes. And I was a little bit like, well, all right, I'm not really playing many minutes, but the minutes I have played, I was top goal scorer in pre-season. I think I had 6 goals in pre-season. Me and Gary Alexander had a few goals between us, and Clayton Donaldson failed to hit the back of the net in pre-season. So once we had the first game of the season, I think we had Yeovil at home, and I found myself sitting on the bench. I thought, I'm not sure what's happening here. And then I was on the bench again the following game. And then I went in and had a chat with him, and I said to him, I need to know, like, what's the reason that I'm not playing. And I was scoring goals in pre-season, and I don't really see myself as a player who wants to sit on the bench. I need to be in the team. And he just said, "Oh, I've gone with the big two because of defensive set pieces." And I'm looking and I'm listening to what Uwe's saying, and I'm thinking, you're a centre forward, and you're talking to me about defensive set pieces.
Yeah, quite a shock.
So
I can imagine.
I couldn't quite get my head around it, if I'm honest. And then, so I stayed again, and then I think that the straw that broke the camel's back was when we travelled to Exeter in one of them cups, and I think we was only allowed 5 subs, and he took me all the way to Exeter, and I wasn't even sub. So then that was when I said, "Listen, I can't just let. I'm 30 years old now. I can't let this pass me by. I mean, I've been in great form pre-season." So I said to my agent, "Listen, it's not happening. It's not going to happen for me here. You know, he's made it quite clear that I don't know. I'm not feeling the love." And it was something that I didn't really want to do because I really loved my time at Brentford. I didn't really want to leave, but for the sake of me playing, I wasn't one of them players prepared just to sit on the bench and accept it.
Makes total sense.
So yeah, I said to my agent, have a look, see what's out there for me before deadline day. And in the end, I had a few clubs that had come in, and I was so close to signing for Notts County under Martin Allen. I had a meeting with them. You know, it was a 3-year contract on the table with them. It was a really good deal, and I was that close. And it was MK Dons who come in at the last minute after they sold Sam Baldock to West Ham. And then obviously once I went and spoke to Carl Robinson up there, and I used to love watching when we played against MK Dons a few times. They really played some good football and keep the ball. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to probably get chances in this team. They're going to be able to create for me. So in the end, yeah, that was the option I took, the MK Dons one.
Yeah, you mentioned Martin Allen. You managed to reunite him with him, wasn't it? 2-3 years later at Barnet.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
finally...
yeah. There's no this. Yeah, with Martin, it was he tried to sign me about 4 times in my career, Martin, when he was at Barnet previously, and then he was at Gillingham as well. Tried to sign me when I left MK Dons. I ended up going to Leyton Orient, but he tried to sign me to go to Gillingham. So yeah, I mean, when I did sign for Barnet under Martin, I'd already had a medical at Oxford. So I was going to sign for Oxford in League 2. I had a medical at Oxford with Gary Waddock as manager, and I had a medical at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 2 o'clock Gary got the sack. Which is, yeah, but that didn't affect my move, because I think who went in there, Michael Apperton went in there, and it didn't affect my move. They were still quite keen, but I don't know. It just, for me, it was, do I do that travelling again? Do I have to, move out of London to go up to Oxford? It was a bit of a journey from London. So in the end, I knew Martin was interested, so we went down and spoke to Martin, and yeah, we got the deal done at Barnet, and what a fantastic year it was. I got to be honest, even though I had a couple of injuries at the time, no day was ever the same under Martin Allen.
Yeah, and
it was that was great. I mean, the unpredictability of the man made training exciting. Like you go in the morning thinking something's going to happen today, and I'm going to be laughing, and yeah, no matter what it was, he'd always do something, and you'd be like, "Oh my god!" And you just, it was great. We had a great team spirit there as well, and it was fantastic. He made me captain, and we managed to win the conference. And again, another great achievement, another great memory I'll have in my career to be able to do that.
Brilliant.
Did you always see your career kind of keeping it going for as long as possible by going down the leagues? Was that always the plan?
I think it wasn't always the plan. I think Barnet ended quite bitter, because obviously I'd played on an injury. I'd done my meniscus, but I did it in the February. But because of where we was in the table, and I knew I could manage it, where I'd be a sort of bit part player till the end of the season if the club needed me. I could do it and then load off of it. And I had my knee drained a couple of times where the fluid was in it. So I thought I put the club before my own needs, and I thought once we'd win the league, I can go and get my knee sorted out, and then great, we're back in League 2. But I had a little bit of a disagreement with the sort of who was going to be doing my operation at the time under Barnet. So I went to, bearing in mind we was insured by Bupa, so it weren't going to cost the club any money. It was all done through Bupa, and I went over to a clinic over in London called the 40th Clinic, and I see the top knee specialist in the country is a fella called Andy Williams. Now his understudy, Mr. Ball, was the one who I saw, but basically the chairman wanted another fella to do my knee called Panos Thomas, who was basically the chairman's mate, who was a surgeon as well. But me and Panos, Panos was the one who put my shoulder back into its place when it popped out at Brentford. And the way he put my shoulder back in, it took him about 15 minutes. And, I'll never know in my head whether it was putting it back in that caused more damage to the actual joint, or actually doing it when it popped out. I'll never know. But for me, I think you've got to have that trust as a player, especially if someone's going to be doing a surgery on you. And I didn't really have that trust with Panos doing the surgery, if I'm honest. And the chairman didn't like that. So in the end, they didn't offer me a new deal.
It's weird thing again, that whole thing about being trusting, feeling a part of something, and you mentioned
exactly.
it quite a lot.
Exactly. So from there, I went to Boreham Wood. So I dropped back down to part-time level at Boreham Wood, and if I've got to be honest, probably the worst time in my career at Boreham Wood. The way the club was run, the way they done things down there, it just wasn't right at all. And in the end, because I signed there on a part-time deal. So when I went part-time, it was one of them ones. I don't know how old I was. I must have been 34. I think I might have been 34. And it was one of them ones. If I now go to part-time and I'm only training 2 nights a week, I'm now going to take less load off my body, which means I might be able to prolong my career to play longer. So I'm not loading my body every day. I get more recovery time. I can now look to do some things outside of football now to set me up for when I actually eventually do the transition of finishing playing. And after joining Boreham Wood, 7 weeks later, they decide that they're going to go 3 mornings a week, but not discuss people's contracts, and you've got to agree with it. And I said, well, I can't agree with giving you 3 mornings a week when I've signed a deal for 2 nights a week. I said, my daytimes have now been freed up to now do other things, because going from full-time to part-time, obviously there's a financial difference, and I need to go and make that financial difference up. I've got a family to support. I've got bills to pay. And they just weren't having it. Because I think at the time I was probably the most experienced player that they had down there, and all the rest were younger players who were thriving to be professional. So for them younger players who live at home with their parents still, who've got no bills to pay, or they've got no responsibilities, they saw 3 mornings a week as brilliant. It's a step towards full-time football. So yeah, in the end, I was sort of cast aside, and I was training on my own over an evening with the physio. But yet they still was picking me in the squad to play on a Saturday. It was very strange, very weird. And it just weren't working out. So I ended up going on loan to St Albans in the league below. And they was bottom of the league at the time, and we managed to stay up on the last day of the season, which was great, because obviously I didn't want to have a relegation on my CV. But yeah, from then on, obviously, I knew that if the part-time thing for me would be, if I could play part-time, I'm going to be able to get more recovery in between sessions. I'm not going to be loading my body as much as everyday stuff. So hopefully, if I keep myself ticking over, I can manage to carry on playing for a few years. So touch wood. So far, so good.
It's going well. You mentioned that discourse. Do you think it was between boardroom and coaching staff was causing that at Boreham Wood, or was it just a case of just circumstances where it just doesn't work out quite as you hoped at the time?
Yeah, I just think it was. I don't know. There was. I don't really want to go into too much about it, because I don't really want to start sort of bad mouthing people. And but yeah, it was a case of, listen, I was a name who had come from a level, and I don't know. I just think it was an ego thing with the chairman and maybe the manager at the time. The fact that I didn't want to so-called toe the line, but it weren't a case of towing the line. Listen, if you wanted me to do 3 mornings a week, you needed to adjust my contract. It was as simple as that. And that way, then we could have come to an arrangement. But they didn't want to do that. They just felt that they could just do that, and I just felt the power that they felt they could just have by just changing from 2 nights a week to 3 mornings, and people just having to go along with it. And if you don't go along with it, well, that's your fault. It was just a weird one, and I know they had a bit of a spat with another player previously, which I found out after, which ended up going to court. So, yeah, they've got reputation of that down there, and yeah, listen, it is what it is. It didn't work out. I don't really say much about Boreham Wood, if I'm honest. When I go through my CV and stuff like that, I don't really mention them. So that's how much I just despise my time at the club.
Yeah, just a blip on the CV. You mentioned,
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You mentioned obviously Boreham Wood was a struggle, but then since then, especially in your lower league careers, you've gone on and scored buckets of goals. It's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. No, it's been great. I mean, even though you get older and you might lose half a yard in the legs, but you never lose that in the brain, in the head. So I've managed to keep myself physically fit. I'm probably in as good a shape as I am as when I was playing professional football. Good weight. I don't load my body as much. I only train at the moment now. I only train once a week, but because I'm coaching every day, I'm on my feet. I'm mobile. I'm involved with sessions. So I think that's a way of me being able to maintain fitness and being physically ready and still being able to do what I'm doing even now, even at the low level that I'm playing at. And no, it's great because everyone says you're a long time retired in the game. So for me, people say, what you're gonna do? You're gonna carry on playing till you're this age? And I say, listen, I'll take it year by year. For me, when's the right time to retire? I don't think there's any right time to retire. I think the time to retire is when there's not an offer there for you anymore. If there's no offer there anymore for you, then it means that you're done and that you can't give a club something that they need. Again, I'll assess it again at the end of this season and see how my body is and see how my body feels and see where I'm at in terms of goals and what I've done. And then I'll decide again what's going to happen next year. But to be fair, I have said this is going to probably be my last one, but never say never.
Have you found the adjustment? Obviously, Gary Alexander has gone from being teammate now to your gaffer. Have you found that as a player has been an odd one or pretty?
No, not really. I've known Gaz since I was 10 years old, so we grew up in the same sort of area. So even before he came to Brentford, like we were pals, we knew each other, and going to Greenwich Borough with him as a manager to start off with, he was fine. I mean, he was still in a process and a transition of coming away from playing as well, so he was finding it a little bit tough by hanging his boots up and going to the managerial side of it rather than. So he's dipping himself in and out of games still, and but no, under Gaz, it's been fine. I mean, I wouldn't have re-signed for Gaz if I didn't feel that we have a relationship, and he knows how I can manage my own body and what it takes for me to get ready for games, and he knows what he expects. I know what he expects from me, and it's been good. But what I find now is that clubs at the lower levels, they don't only want me in the building for what I can do on the pitch. It's what I bring. It's what I bring with it. So like my preparation before games and my experiences and talking to these younger boys and all the little bits and pieces that come with it that's going to help and help the club and help the younger players. I think that's a big thing as well. Is not only what I can do on the pitch, it's what I do off it, and that's why I've probably still managed to play in the game, and I still had offers to still play at some sort of level.
If tomorrow, hypothetically, a League Two club came in for you, would you go back into professional football again, or are you quite content where you are now with part-time?
Oh, that's a hypothetical one, isn't it? Listen, I'd love to go back into football. I'm not going to lie, it'd be brilliant. Do I feel I can still play at a higher level? Yes, I do. it can be very frustrating at the lower levels with some of the players you're playing against, some of the games that you're in. But it is what it is, and you've got to do what you can and do it professionally. And that's one thing that I will say that I've never changed is I've never changed my preparation before games, what I eat before games, hydrating myself, and I think that's helped me. That's helped me at 39 years old. That's helped me still play now with all these young lads. I mean, boys don't believe I'm 39, which is great because obviously there's some lads who I feel that they say they're a certain age and I think they're 50. So no, it's good because if the boys like, oh no, you're running around still and you're mobile and this, that, the other, you're never 39. I wish I wasn't.
39
I really
years
wish
young.
I wasn't. Yeah, Peter Pan. So, yeah, no, I wish I wasn't. I wish, like I say, it's a short career, and I will miss playing. I'll miss the dressing rooms, and I'll miss that every day. I'll miss that Saturday feeling, getting up, knowing you've got a game at 3:00, preparing yourself, getting there, getting ready. Nothing's going to be able to replace that. So when that finally does come to an end, that'll be tough. But again, I think I've managed to put all my ducks in a row and make sure that I'm ready. And the transition's been it's been quite fluent in terms of getting it done. So the transition's going to be a lot easier when I do finally say, listen, we're done now on a Saturday. What now can I do on Saturdays and Tuesday nights?
Yeah, that's the thing. Do you see yourself then stepping into senior football on a coaching capacity or just where the wind takes you?
Yeah, you can never say never on that one. Possibly. I mean, that's a possible avenue I can go down because obviously with a football college program that I do at the moment, I take games. So not only do I coach the training, I take games and I enjoy the match day experience with these younger boys as well. So, I mean, that's under 19 football in the National Youth League. So, yeah, I mean, we've got our way, we've got our structure, we've got our philosophy of playing. So, in a way, I'm set up for it. But, there is other avenues I can go down. I mean, the agency that I work for, for the football college program is Valenti. They've got an agency program. I mean, Bobby Barry was my agent as a player, so there's talk of obviously me going into the agency side of it and going to look after players and going to games, watching games, catching up with players, recruiting new young players, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that I've got to sort of work out where I see myself best. Do I see myself going to do match summarising back onto using my media degree and going to do some radio work? There's loads of little avenues I may be able to go down and dip in and dip out of.
Just closely we'll finish it up there then. What's your best story you can tell us from your experience as a footballer? You obviously mentioned with Martin Allen was something else during the back end of your career. What would you say is your best story that's probably can be told live on air? Because there's probably a few that can't be mentioned.
Yeah, there probably is a few that can't be mentioned. Best story. Story. It's a tough question, that, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Let me come back to that one. Let me have a little think of that one. Let me come back to that one.
That's all right.
Yeah.
As obviously someone that's played at the professional level of the game for most of your career, what's the weirdest engagement you've had with a fan?
To be honest with you, it was probably, I'd say weirdest. I'd say it was probably a Brentford fan, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very, I wouldn't say weirdest. I'd say it was probably a little bit uncalled for. So it was when I was at MK Dons. We come to Griffin Park, and I think the first time I come to Griffin Park, we ended up drawing 3-3. Do you remember the game?
I don't remember that, to be honest.
I think Leon Legg scored a late equaliser for Brentford. We ended up going 3-0 up, I think. At MK Dons, I scored. And then the second time we went back there, I think I was sub and I was warming up along the line, and then one of the fans come to the front behind the goal, and he was absolutely abusing me, telling me you went for the money and you was right sitting on a treatment bed taking your wages. And I was thinking, wow, where's this coming from? And like very aggressive. And you know, I'll be honest with you, it's the only time I've really had an altercation like that with any sort of fan, because whenever I've gone back to Griffin Park or whenever I played Brentford, I've got a fantastic reception. And, you know, when scoring against Brentford, I've never celebrated. And, you know, I have that respect for the fans. And, you know, they made my journey at the club as good as it was. So I was a little bit surprised at that one, if I'm totally honest, with that one with the fans. So I think after the game, the steward after the game, he was waiting for me outside the changing room. I said, "What's up?" He said, I'm just going to walk you down to the coach. I said, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "No, listen, don't worry, I'm fine. Like, it's not a problem." And he was like, "Oh, no, you know, we've got to do it." So, yeah, no. Other than that, I've not really had a weird one with a fan.
So, odd one, especially from Bees fans who tend to. Yeah.
Here's a story for you. So
Go
on. So when I was a youngster at Charlton, we played. So I broke into the first team, and you know, I was managed to get a few appearances and off the bench, and we played Stoke away in one of the cup competitions. And I was warming up on the side of the pitch, and at the time, John Solarco, you remember John Solarco, played for England, played for Crystal Palace, done a bit of pundit work on Sky Sports, and he was obviously coming towards the end of his career, and he was warming up with me along the bit, and then there was a Stoke fan, giving him absolute dog's abuse on the side of the pitch, like, "Solarco, you're all washed up," and you know, stuff. So I didn't think anything of it. He was like giggling, and all of a sudden, John's turned around and gone, "What time you got to go work in the morning, mate?" And then I was like, "Oh," and he went, "Oh, I'm gonna have a day off tomorrow. Probably put a bit of chlorine in me indoor pool, get a bit of hay and feed the ponies." And this fan just completely was staring at him, and he was in shock. And then John just like walked off like laughing. And then when I went to sit back down in the dugout, he went, "I just had to give him a little bit, didn't I?" Like these fans. And I thought, it's the first time I've ever seen like any player like go with a little bit about him.
Yeah.
And the fans just completely like shut up. So that was quite a funny one for me, in terms of it's a bit like big time banter, but it was quite a funny one. He could have gone the other way and could have, you know, started shouting, hollering, swearing, but he went a different way about it, and I thought it was quite cute. But I found it quite funny and amusing at the time. But yeah, that is one I could tell you live on air. There's a lot I couldn't, which is not right. So yeah,
we'll keep that one for another time. Reminds me of that time when Lampard was getting pelters when he was warming up, and then Chelsea scored and he just shushed them, and the entire stand behind him goes quiet.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's the thing with supporters. The moment you start booing people or giving them abuse, you never know what they can come up with. So there's always going to be a way. You'd rather wait until the final whistle if you're going to do that, don't you?
Yeah. And lastly, to finish up, then, who's the hardest defender you've played against in your career across the every level you've played at?
Gary Pallister. So Gary Pallister, ex-Man United, under Sir Alex Ferguson, when he was partnering Steve Bruce at the back, he went to Middlesbrough. So Middlesbrough signed him. I think he was manager at the time. Maybe Brian Robson was manager at the time, and he went to Middlesbrough. And I remember my first Premier League start for Charlton was against Middlesbrough at the Valley, and I looked at the team sheet, and they just signed Ugo Egiog, God rest his soul. They signed him from Aston Villa. So the two centre-halves were Ugo Egiog and Gary Pallister. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm starting today. I'm a young lad. I think I was about 18 or 19. And I was thinking, listen, I've got to play on Pallister. His legs are gone. So this is me in my head, his legs are gone. Play on him. Don't play on Ugo Egiog. He's more athletic. And then, I kid you not, Gary Pallister had me in his pocket for 90 minutes. He was unbelievable. He was strong. He read the game. He was quicker than I thought. He was a proper defender, proper player, and he was by far the toughest centre half that I've played against. And I've played against a lot of good ones as well. I've played against Jonathan Woodgate, and I've played against some real good ones who have gone on in the game and done well as well at lower levels. But But yeah, Gary Pallister, even towards the end of his career, was probably the toughest defender I've played against.
Brilliant. Honestly, I can't thank you enough for coming onto the podcast and having a
No,
chat
it's
with us
been
today.
great. It's been great reminiscing as well. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.
Brilliant, Charlie. Cheers. Right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please do like, subscribe, and share. It does massively help out the podcast. And thank you, and on to the next one.